Hey there, and welcome to the You Ask the Pros Answer podcast, your questions answered by the pros you trust. My name is Cole. I'm one of the hosts of the show. I'm also part of the marketing team at Pro Exteriors. And today, joined as always, or at least most of the time, I have with me another host and owner and president. He wears many hats, although today he's not wearing a hat at all. Aaron Rogers. Aaron, how are you?
I am wonderful, Cole. How are you?
Aaron, I am under the weather, both metaphorically speaking and literally speaking, because it is snowing here today in northern Kentucky, and I can get down with some snow. Boy, I wish I had that to do over again. Aaron, usually when you and I hop on here, we are in our respective studios. We're meeting like this to discuss a topic, a question. But today is a little bit different because last week, our whole marketing team, so you, Kara, and myself, had a chance to meet up in DC for a conference.
Yep.
And then as part of that, we had a chance to debrief a little bit and talk through just some of our takeaways from that conference. And that's what our audience is going to get a chance to see today. Am I right?
Yeah.
I don't know why I asked you that question. I'm the one that's probably going to edit this unless you're going to take this one.
I mean, if you've got the time and the capacity, I'd say it, let you do it. So
I'll give it a shot. All right. So one of our core values as a company is professional development. You as our leader value very heavily the idea that we should always be learning, always be honing our craft. And so last week was an opportunity for us to do some face-to-face learning, getting off the webinar tour, as some of us are prone to do. I don't really know what I'm saying, but here's what I want to ask you, Aaron. It's been about a week since we've been back. We survived a near catastrophic interaction with, well, I was going to say an Uber driver, but it really wasn't our Uber driver. Stay tuned for that story. Aaron, is there anything that has just kind of stuck in your craw since coming back from the conference?
Yeah, there's definitely a few things that have kind of stuck around with me that are still, pretty in the front of mind. I think the one that sticks out the most is kind of refining our offerings a little bit. We do a lot here. I'm not big on saying no, especially to like past really good clients that come back to me. It's like, hey, we have a new project. And even if it's not something that we technically do on the daily, we have the capacity to do almost everything you can think of in your home. So, I sometimes take on projects that aren't necessarily in our main wheelhouse, as well as like we offer, anything on the exterior of a home is like our day-to-day offering. So roofing, siding, windows, doors, decks, porches, gutters. So we have the capacity and the people, the manpower, the skills, the relationships to do all that stuff. But, I think at times, I don't know if that's the right way to go about this. And so the one thing like taken away is like, do we refine our services a little bit? Do we narrow this down on the things like we're the absolute best at and just offer that? If I never say that I want to be the best, but I want to be the best that we can be. And in turn, like the experience we can offer our customers would be better than, potentially better than our competitors, or at least, the majority of our competitors. So I think there's a way to do that. And I'm really, I'm not much to say no to people. So that's going to be a very big transition if we do decide to pull the trigger on that. So,
yeah, it's funny you would say that, because that was the thing that I have pages and pages of notes, that we all took. But the one thing,
and lots of drawings. I did notice you like to draw during
lots of doodles. Keeps me focused.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that's really stuck with me is the idea of just keeping it simple, stupid. That old KISS idea. And not just with our offerings, but just in everything. We tend to overcomplicate. We tend to over programatize. We overthink.
Yep.
Well, audience, this whole episode is going to be a chance for you to hear from Aaron and myself, but also from Kara. So you'll get a little bit of a break from us as well. And this is a conversation that took place right there, smack dab in the middle of our learning. So our thoughts are still kind of raw and unrefined, but hopefully you will take away some nuggets from this episode. Be sure, if for no other reason, listen to this episode for the truly embarrassing story of our ill-fated Uber ride. Without further ado, go ahead and here's past Aaron, past Cole, and past Kara. Check it out. This is the You Ask, the Pros Answer podcast. Do you have questions about an upcoming exterior contracting project? We've got answers. Welcome to the You Ask, the Pros Answer podcast. Hey, we are here at the Growth Mastery Summit just outside of DC. We've had a couple of really good days here. Wanted to start out with just a quick story. So there's the three of us here on camera, and then Colin's back there behind the camera. And we had a full day of sessions, a lot of learning and training. We decided we'd go out to eat and get some dinner. We had some good Mexican. I was going to say local Mexican, but it really wasn't local Mexican.
Felt local.
And so we've been taking Uber rides from the hotel to the restaurants and back, and it's been pretty uneventful. I mean, there's 4 grown adults trying to fit into a car. So this evening, Aaron decided, is it called Uber Black?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So got Uber Black. Aaron's like, all right, we've got, 5 minutes until this black Chevy Suburban pulls in. So we all go out on the curb. Aaron, what happened next?
It just so happened while we were standing out here as watching the Uber app, and it says your driver is pulling up. The black Chevy Suburban pulls up. I wave to the guy to let him know that we're the recipients of the ride. He waves back. He then proceeds to pull into the parking spots next to us. And then we, like most Uber drivers or Uber riders, go over to the vehicle and start to open doors to say, "Hey, we're your riders." At which case, there was a car seat in my seat. I believe there was also a car seat on the opposite side, and the gentleman behind the wheel of the vehicle very quickly notified us that he was not an Uber driver. It was at that point we realized we made a mistake. We shut the doors, we stepped back to the curb, and then we noticed another black Chevy Suburban.
Yeah, real quick.
Go ahead.
Just to interrupt here, Kara, was that next black Suburban that pulled in, was that our Uber driver?
No, it was not our Uber driver. We walked halfway across the parking lot and realized that was not our Uber driver either. So that was the second Suburban that was not our Uber driver.
Now, mind you, we had been standing outside by the curb for several minutes, and no other black Suburbans had arrived. And also, keep in mind, the Uber app is telling me that our driver has arrived. And once the second Suburban pulls up, I look back at the app again, realizing that this gentleman is parked, 3 rows of parking away. I look back at the app, and now it's telling me that the driver is actually 100 feet around the corner. And then it was several minutes went by when our actual driver, so the third black Chevy Suburban, arrived at that point.
Yeah, and we made it back here, and we're good. I don't know what lesson can be learned from that experience, but
don't make assumptions.
Yeah.
No
do not make assumptions. Yeah. All right.
Wait your turn could be another one. There's a lot.
That has nothing to do with the episode today. Really, the question that we want to answer is what is next in our industry. That's part of the reason that we've spent the time to travel here, to learn from people that are in the industry that have gone before us, and so we want to answer that question. We want to try to answer the question, what's next? But I want to start here. As a company, we have 4 core values, and the 4th one is professional development. So Aaron, I don't know how many years ago it was that you decided that that's going to be one of our core values. Do you remember how back
I
that
mean,
was?
it's been several years ago. I've always loved learning more about the industry and staying current, staying on top of trends and whatnot. So I would say, we put these core values kind of together in the last 2 years or so. Prior to that, professional development has always kind of been a high priority for us. We've been doing trainings. Dave Yoho, this is the second or third time we've done Dave Yoho trainings. But yeah, so it's been many years now that we've taken professional development as a very serious thing. So,
and it requires sacrifice because we could be back in our service area, and I'm sure you're still doing work while you're here. That work never stops, but it does take some sacrifice to say, okay, I want to spend the time and money investment in my team members to hopefully better them and better the company. One of the so anyway, we appreciate that. I hope you know that. We would say that even if a camera wasn't pointed at our face. So that's why we're doing this episode, is because we, as a company, believe strongly in professional development. All right, let's transition to actually answering the question, what is next in our industry? Let's talk financing. Aaron, that is something that as a company we offer to all of our customers.
Yep.
Could you talk a little bit about some of the statistics that we've learned over these last couple of days?
Yeah, so we, financing, most home improvement companies offer financing. Some do it as kind of a second option, and some of them kind of do it on the front end. We've not always done the greatest job as far as offering financing on the front end to our customers. We only really offer it kind of as an as-needed basis. But we're learning more and more and more that, consumers don't always have the savings to do a lot of the projects. A roof, for instance, the average ticket price of a roof is $12,000. Our average consumer across the country does not have $12,000 in savings, or at times they have to pull that $12,000 from another source, whether it be, a private lender, whether it be home equity, what have you. There's several options, but we're learning more and more and more that, people are willing to finance things, if it's a want, if it's a need, it doesn't really matter. Financing is kind of a larger conversation. We talked about the common occurrence of people buy almost everything with financing. There is this stigma based around home improvement where, why should I have to finance these items? But why shouldn't we? If I'm able to go and, take $25,000 out of my pocket to do a home improvement project, that's great. Would I also do that for, say, $200 a month? Absolutely. Which one would I rather do? I'd rather spend $200 a month on a project and keep the $25,000 in my bank account. Let it accrue interest. Let it be there if a real emergency pops up. But a lot of people are in that same situation where they may or may not have the money. That may deplete their savings. It may put them in a position where if something else is to come up down the road, another emergency, that may put them in a position where they're not super comfortable. So we're seeing more and more that people need the financing. Over the last couple of years, rates have kind of tend to increase. Approvals are kind of getting a little bit more stringent. We've learned that 65% of all people get approvals on their first go around, and the other kind of 1/3 of people may need to go into some secondary or third kind of lending options, which aren't always ideal. But why wouldn't we finance? There's not really a good reason to not finance. Taking the cash out of your bank account, it's nice. You don't have to worry about the payment. But we can finance anything at any point in time. Any size project, we have financing that basically covers that.
So what I'm hearing you say is when Tabby or Kara or any of us answer the phone and a potential customer's on the other end of the line, one of the first questions we ask is, do you think you'd be interested in financing? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes our customers almost take offense to that no, I'm not going to need financing. Yeah. But what I hear you saying is that should not be a stigma. That should not be something that people view as a negative thing. It's become very commonplace in our society that, people finance everything.
Right. You go to buy a vehicle, pretty much everybody is assuming that you're financing that vehicle. When you go to do a home improvement project, there's this weird, like you said, there's a stigma surrounded home improvement projects. Like if you don't have the money, you just don't do the project. But But if you finance a vehicle, if it's the same price as your home improvement project, why wouldn't you finance that project? And I think it puts you in a lot of situations where if you have a project you're in need of, but you may or may not have the funding, like financing is the solution to that problem.
So just to recap that, if you are in the market for a new roof or siding, and oftentimes these projects come up and you're not necessarily expecting them. It could be the result of a roofing inspection. It's one of our guys comes out and says, hey, I thought you had another few years on this roof, but you don't. That's a big surprise. And like you said, not many of us have $10, $20, $15,000 earmarked for that project. So
yeah. And then the other thought process behind it is sometimes, if it's a needs-based thing, you need a roof, you can't always put that off. Your window breaks, you need a new window, you can't always put that project off. But if we look on the other side of that, the opposite of a need is a want. So for instance, we use one of the speakers used the instance of like he really wants to remodel his kitchen. So let's say that the average ticket for a kitchen, I think, is around $23,000. So let's say this gentleman doesn't have $23,000 laying around, but he really, really wants to get it done now. So if it costs $23,000 today, if COVID has taught us anything, we know that prices are never going to go back down. They're always going to continue to go back up. So let's say it takes you 2 years to put this money together to do this project. Well, $23,000 in 2 years could be $27,000, could be $29,000. For all we know, it could be $30,000. So financing eliminates that need to wait for projects that you really have a want for. Financing is the solution for going ahead and getting that done now.
Yeah. All right, let's shift gears. A big part of what separates one company from another, and specifically in this conversation, one contractor from another, can be the little things. Speaking specifically about the customer experience, most any contractor you call is going to be able to put on a roof or put on siding, but that's not really where customers are won and lost. It's really in the interactions it's the human interactions that matter.
100%. Yep.
And so we've, just earlier today, we were reminded of some really foundational ideas. So nothing's earth-shattering that we've been learning necessarily. It's all reminding us of things that maybe we've forgotten about. We get stuck in the urgency of what's directly in front of us. We forget to look out ahead. So a couple of things, just kind of peel the curtain back. If you are a potential customer, know these few things, okay? We want to create a raving fan in you. We want to welcome you into the Pro Exteriors family. And we don't say that lightly. We don't say that just to earn your business. We truly believe that you are part of our business moving forward. And you can bring in your friends, your neighbors, your family, because of the experience that you have with us. So we were taught that we want to do everything we can do to create, to keep, and multiply customers. And so when we are asking you for a 5-star review, it's not just simply so we can get another 5-star review. It's because we want to build trust between us as a company and you as the customer. We believe positive word of mouth is huge. We know that when you go to Google and you put in, help me find a contractor in my area, you're going to come up with a list that is overwhelming, and it's going to become very difficult to choose the right one unless you've heard word of mouth, or you put something on Facebook and somebody says, hey, I used this company and they were great. So positive word of mouth is important. Repeat business. So if we come and we do your roof, we hope that we have done such a good job that when it comes time for you to replace all your windows, that we're going to be the first people that you call. Let's see. Kara, sticking in the vein of relationships, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the breakout session that a couple of us attended earlier that talks about the importance of company culture. I want to pass this on to you so I don't have to scream.
Thank you. Yeah, so we did attend a breakout session on building a culture to last, and that's really important in our industry, as Aaron and Cole have talked about before. Contractors, roofers, kind of exterior remodeling, they kind of have a reputation being a little rough around the edges, and Like Cole mentioned in the beginning of this video, this is what we're looking at moving forward, so 2025 and on. These companies are starting to really build a culture within their own employees that's going to last. So a company can't provide you quality service if their service from within is not good. So if their employees don't have good relationships with each other, if they don't have a good relationship with their boss, their managers, they're not going to be able to succeed in providing you the top quality service that you want. And so some of the topics that they talked about today were actually starting to question their employees on a quarterly or even a yearly basis, really taking in those performance reviews of their managers and how they're being treated, just so that they know that every employee does have a voice. And that way, if this employee is feeling a little bit left out, not part of the team, they can let their managers know that. The managers can get them back on track with the team, and hopefully be able to provide them with the space and the time to then go out and provide the customers with 5-star service.
So it was roughly a month-ish ago that I sent that email out to everybody asking for like such a random whim of an email, but I was reading some book and I had it in my mind. I had all these great top-of-mind questions, and I sent out a list of 10-ish questions to every employee with the expectation that I'd get back, some normal kind of funny responses. Not every employee feels like super comfortable to give their full, honest opinion. But I'll say that like the feedback that I got back was amazing. I was able to kind of get a better understanding of everybody's opinion of where the company is, the things that I think may not always be accurate. And then sometimes I have blind spots. I get so busy and kind of bogged down in the day-to-day and being inundated with trying to maintain all of the relationships both internally and externally in the business that I become blind to a lot of the things that can be happening like within the walls of our business. So, you gave me great feedback. Tabby gave me great feedback. You gave me great feedback, to the point where I realized that there were some things that I was lacking in that I honestly didn't consider. I think Tabby specifically requested, it would be nice if you're, consistently in the office more, which is difficult for me because I am called in so many different directions that, it's not always guaranteed that I'm going to be in the office at any particular time. And it was something that I didn't consider. I'm so used to being able to respond to everybody's questions between text message and phone call, email. We use Slack as kind of an internal communication. I'm so used to responding in that capacity that me being physically in the office wasn't something that I really considered was a blind spot for me. So being able to create raving fans is crucial for us to be able to have that internal communication and open, honest communication with each other. I think that's huge. So.
So, Carrie, you didn't allude to it, you straight up said the camaraderie amongst team members. We don't all have to be best friends. We don't all have to hang out every day, but there needs to be a sense of team, and that helps then drive the customer experience. And one of the things that's been brought up a number of times in the last 48 hours here at this training is the rise of private equity that continues to infiltrate the home improvement industry.
Yeah.
And you can speak more fluently on this than I can, but what I gather from private equity firms is that they want to see a company that has really strong processes in place, really well-oiled machine. So for a company like us that, we're a local organization, we service the area in which we're based, we have to constantly be upping our game to differentiate ourselves from these other organizations, other companies that are really good. They know what they're doing. They have the processes in place. And it's one of the areas that we've identified that we do a lot of things well, but there's always room or opportunities for improvement.
Yeah.
And so I think we're taking a good hard look at ourselves and saying, what tangible steps can we take so that in the new year we are better than we were in the past year.
Agreed. I mean, the one thing about it, having private equity come in, and it's been kind of a very large conversation. They've started coming into the space as early as 2017, I think, is what we learned. But coming into COVID times, where the home improvement industry just exploded, that was the first time that I think most of us in the industry really started hearing the word private equity in our space. So as these companies come in and they're buying up a lot of the kind of more locally known companies in our areas, and they may or may not be changing the name. With private equity comes big money, big budgets, a lot of times way more people. There are times where, because they have more people and they have a larger reach, they have the ability to offer different services than what we can potentially offer. We are a small business. There's only so many of us. There's only so many hours in the day. We don't work 24/7, where these companies may have systems and processes in place where they can offer that 100%. But with private equity, if I was an investor and I'm going to come in and I'm going to invest millions of dollars into purchasing your company, what's the one thing that any investor wants, and that's returns. If I'm going to purchase your company for $5, $10, $20 million, I'm going to want maximum return out of that investment, and I'm not going to want to wait super long for that. So one of the things you see with private equity companies coming in and purchasing these companies, you oftentimes see a rise in the cost of services. And typically when you have multiple larger companies in the area get purchased, you see kind of a rise in the cost of services kind of in that whole territory. They say a rising tide raises all ships. Well, if everybody's raising their prices, then naturally even the smaller companies are going to start to raise their prices. So although they can offer you, potentially better communication, or they have just more people available to field your calls and your concerns better than maybe a smaller company can, it oftentimes comes with a much larger price tag. So one of the things we have as kind of going for us as a small business is, our prices may or may not be as high as them. Our money does stay here locally. We're not bumping up to, some sort of investment platform or a board of investors that's kind of overseeing everything. Our money stays here locally. We invest into our community. We introduced our Community Pro Pledge in the last year. We take that very, very seriously. We have an amazing partnership with Habitat for Humanity, where I think we're up to 7 roofs that we've donated so far this year. And that's something that we're really, really proud of. Not to say that these companies don't have the same ability that we do, but it means a lot different to us than it would for a company like that. So so the company culture, private equity coming in, and a lot of times they change out people that don't fit their mold. They don't necessarily want huge personalities. They want people that just kind of fit into what they're trying to build as a total. So I think there's a lot to be said there.
Yeah, so ultimately, except for the rising prices, the people that benefit the most from private equity entering home improvement is the customer, because they're getting a better product, maybe because it's raising the bar for all of us.
Yeah.
I guess the people selling out the private equity do okay too.
They're getting their multiple.
Yeah. So to wrap this up, the last 48 hours, we have another half a day of this. Has this been a worthwhile trip for you?
Always, yeah.
Worthwhile trip for you?
I think so, yes.
Colin, back behind the camera, he's shaking his head. Shaking his head, yes. All right, just to kind of wrap things up. So we started out by saying that the whole reason that we're here, the whole reason that we're recording from this space and not our normal studio, is because as a company we value professional development. So the hope is that we are all better today than we were the day prior. Then Aaron touched on financing and how if you're asked or offered financing, if you need it, just be honest, take it. It's more common than you would even believe. As a company, we want to continue to create raving fans. We want our Pro Exteriors family to be our biggest cheerleaders out in the community. Kara touched on company culture and how that trickles out into the jobs that we do and hopefully can be felt by all of our customers. And then Aaron, we wrapped up just by talking about how the rise of private equity into the home improvement space is really forcing all of us even the local companies to up our game when it comes to processes, communication. We're taking all of that seriously. You talked about how you sent out that pretty vulnerable email for a guy who cut his teeth swinging a hammer, asking for feedback. And that feedback loop is creating a culture where we all feel comfortable sharing the things that we're struggling with, the things that we're doing well, which then just results in a better, stronger company.
Yep.
Kara, thanks for hopping on this side of the camera. I know you're often on the other side of things, getting things set up, so thank you. Aaron, thanks for letting us invade your space for a little bit. To Colin behind the camera, thank you for making sure that we look and sound good. All right, that is all we have for you today on the You Ask the Pros Answer podcast. Hey, would you help us get the word out about the show? The best way to do this is to simply leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media or simply tell a friend. Also, before we go, we want to hear from you. This show does not exist without your questions. What do you want to know about home remodeling? Anything to do with the house, we want to know. Would you please send us a question to info@askproexteriors.com, and in the subject line, you can simply put "You Ask." If you are facing an upcoming home project, we hope this episode empowered you to tackle it with confidence. Remember, knowledge is power, and a little bit of research can go a long way. Until next time, happy homeowning. The You Ask the Pros Answer podcast is produced in-house by the Pro Exteriors team. Pro Exteriors is the exterior contracting division of Empire Construction Group, LLC. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal advice. For more answers to your questions, please subscribe to this channel and podcast so you'll never miss an episode. Do you have an upcoming home remodeling project? Find more answers to your questions at askproexteriors.com.